So let's take a brief look here at the agricultural sector. We have seen this figure before in terms of climate impacts on agriculture, agricultural impacts on environment, and how to worry about protecting agriculture from climate change. Here we are going the other way. What are the co-benefits if we mitigate emissions coming out of the agricultural sector? So if you start by looking at environmental impacts of food and agriculture, they emit 26% of the global greenhouse gases, as we've already seen with the pie chart. 50% of the global habitable land is used for agriculture. 70% of the global freshwater withdrawals are used for agriculture and food production. 78% of the global freshwater, global ocean and freshwater pollution is eutrophied by this sector, and of course 94% of the mammal biomass is affected by livestock, which is, as a food, it's highly inefficient per calorie, per protein unit, whatever you want to think about. Okay, so those are the numbers here. 13.7 billion tons of CO2 equivalent coming from this sector, 51 million square kilometers used for agriculture, 70% of the global freshwater withdrawal, 78% of the global eutrophication, and 94% of the global biomass, excluding humans, is livestock, which affect air quality, water quality, and generally environmental degradation. You can further split it into emissions by sector in terms of CO2 equivalent over this period as presented by FAO. We won't worry about the numbers here, but you can see the largest here, it's coming from enteric fermentation, so livestock. That goes with this number here, so that's not great. Manure left on pasture, synthetic fertilizers, rice cultivation, manure management, and others such as burning crop residues, savannas, cultivation of organic soils, manure supplied to soils, and so on and so forth. The point being that agriculture is a major part of human impact on climate change through direct emissions and land use change, water use, and so on, fertilizer use, etc. Again, from FAO, if you look at the state of food and agriculture in terms of climate change, agriculture, and food security for 2016, we have seen these numbers already, but let's just mention them again. Climate change obviously is affecting agriculture fairly seriously, raising serious issues of food security in terms of access, equities, nutrition, utilization of food, body's uptake of nutrients, and so on. And agriculture contributes to climate change in return. There is a strong feedback. The challenge, of course, is to produce more food for the population that will grow for some time, at least a couple of decades, and then reduce greenhouse gas emissions from the agricultural sector in the context of looking for co-benefits for human health, right? How agriculture contributes to climate change, again looking at the split as a pie chart: energy use, agriculture, forestry, and other land use, AFOLU, transport, residential and commercial, institutional contributions, industrial processes and solvent use in food processing, and so on, and all other resources that are here. So these are the different economic sectors that are contributing, with agriculture being here at 21%. We said 26% before, so depends on the year, depends on what is included in these here. Land use is included with agriculture. Taken together, agriculture, forestry, and land use change account for at least 1/5 of total emissions, mainly from the conversion of forests to farmland, as well as from livestock and crop production. Okay. Briefly, the agriculture sectors can substantially contribute to balancing the global carbon cycle. Here, responding to climate change, mitigation is of course key for the long-term food security of world's population. That's in terms of mitigating climate change and its impacts on agriculture. In terms of agriculture itself, resource use efficiency can reduce its impact on climate. Soil regeneration can increase soil nutrient uptake, soil carbon uptake, soil moisture retention, and together they can bind a large amount of atmospheric CO2 and lower the emissions of nitrous oxide and methane, which are much stronger as greenhouse gases than CO2, right? In terms of forestry, reducing deforestation and increasing forested area, adopting sustained yield management in timber production, which can help, of course, reduce CO2 by capturing more CO2 in forests, even though there is a lot of debate these days on whether just planting a trillion trees is going to be a silver bullet for climate change. As you know, forests can throw up all the carbon back into the atmosphere with the wildfires, which are increasing in area burned and intensity, if not in the number. The number of forest fires is complicated by human management of wildfires and wildfire conditions and so on. Okay, so reducing food loss and waste also would improve the efficiency of the food system, reduce both pressure on natural resources and emissions of greenhouse gases, rebalancing diets towards less animal-sourced foods, of course. This would make an important contribution with probable co-benefits for human health. Okay, so sorry, I'm getting a sneeze. Looking here again, this is another schematic from Lancet article which looks specifically at greenhouse gases to climate change from food system activities before livestock production, so land clearing, grains and soy growing, harvesting and transporting, producing N2O, CO2, methane, food system activities for livestock production like feed stocks and so on, enteric fermentation, manure management, fertilizer use, machinery, crop residue burning, soil or biomass management. Here, food system activities after livestock production, so slaughter, processing, transport, refrigeration, storage, distribution, retail outlets, and so on. They are direct pathways from food systems to dietary intakes. Here you look at high intake of food from animal proteins impacting high calories, saturated fat, meat-related carcinogens leading to colorectal and some other cancers, cardiovascular diseases, obesity, type 2 diabetes related disorders, etc. that amount to health outcomes. So these kind of schematic which more explicitly included the health outcomes can help you better determine the co-benefits of mitigating agricultural system at various levels, including emissions, of course, and impacts on air quality and water quality. Looking in terms of Paris Agreement, there are many countries which include agriculture in their intended nationally determined contributions, which now is just reduced to nationally determined, not intended anymore. Monitoring, verification and reporting is going to start very soon on the commitments made by these countries. So these are the countries in blue that have explicit adaptation priorities that include agriculture. Other grey countries have either no NDC or NDC does not cover adaptation. There is also the agricultural mitigation component. So many countries in these colors have included greenhouse gas reduction target, specifically including agriculture, from livestock, rice paddies, and so on. Economy-wide greenhouse gas reduction targets are included in these other and greenhouse gas reduction target excludes agriculture in countries like China and India, which are of course large emitters, and there are a few that have no INDCs committed. Okay, so this is repeating some of the points we have made, but there are podcasts I have on my course on drawdown and on climate solutions, where we talk more specifically about climate mitigation strategies. Here are a few from the book that we are using: Co-Benefits of Climate Change Mitigation Strategies in Agriculture. Mitigation strategies including sustainable local food systems, reducing food miles, improve land management and agricultural practices. So this also reduces virtual water transport in terms of grains, fruits, vegetables. Also embedded carbon that is being exported when you export agricultural products, and equitable meat consumption. So for sustainable local food systems, intermediate impacts include increase school and community gardens, increase urban agriculture. We'll look at an example when we come to the urban sector. Increase healthy food access, increase nutritional awareness. We've talked about health relation to nutrition and food utilization, so sustainable local food systems can help that as well. Health impacts include decreased obesity, decreased cardiovascular diseases and diabetes, increase social capital. So China and India, for example, and even the US are now seeing increased diabetes type 2, which is related often to activities, physical activities and diets. Okay. As a strategy, improving land management and agricultural practices will give us intermediately reduced fertilizer and pesticide use and reduced antibiotic use, with health impacts including reduced pesticide illness, improved worker health, improved water quality. We looked at waterborne diseases, which is very critical in terms of agricultural sector impact on health, reduced antibiotic resistance. Equitable meat consumption would lead to reducing meat consumption and increasing meat consumption. So it depends on who will reduce and who will increase, right? If you make it equitable, the top 10% who contribute almost 90 or at least 70% of the emissions would reduce meat consumption, but the bottom 90% would increase meat consumption. Health-wise, decrease cardiovascular disease, cancers in developed nations, chronic diseases, reduce protein deficiency in poor nations. Okay, so we will leave the agriculture sector here with this quick run through in terms of climate impact on agriculture we have looked at before throughout, and agricultural food impact on food security and climate. And here we are looking at mitigating emissions and impacts of agricultural sector and potential health co-benefits. We'll now move on to the building sector and then follow up with the urban greening. Okay.